In October, California became the first state in the U.S. to require ethnic studies for high school graduation starting in 2030. Signed into law by Governor Gavin Newsom, the measure was the subject of a more than 5-year battle over curriculum content, inclusion and conservative backlash against teaching about racism in K-12 schools. Bucking the reactionary furor over social justice education, all California students will finally have the opportunity to learn American history beyond the standard narratives of heroic straight white males, and a handful of exceptional people of color. Per the state guidelines, core ethnic studies themes focus on identity, history, systems of power, social movements and equity. But the long-term effects on student learning will ultimately hinge on execution, particularly for marginalized Black LGBTQ youth. Past education mandates illustrate this problem. Despite the passage of the California Fair Education Act in 2011 mandating the inclusion of LGBTQ contributions to American history in K-12 education, also the first of its kind in the nation, LGBTQ-inclusive social history is still minimal in many California schools. Only 31% of California students reported being taught this material in 2019. The lack of representation is especially acute for Black queer youth, who are nearly invisible in the curriculum and often thrust into environments where there are no openly identified Black queer teachers or administrators. Middle and high school students raised these issues during a recent youth virtual event organized by the LA-based Black LGBTQ+ parent and caregiver group. Thus, simply requiring ethnic studies courses in schools will not redress institutional racism in classrooms or school communities, much as an LGBTQ education mandate didn't erase heterosexism or transphobia. For ethnic studies to succeed, it must be part of a broader approach to teaching, learning and social-emotional support for students, taking into account the overlap of racial, gender and sexual identities. Recently, for example, a Black student told me that their parent threatened to kick them out of the house because they identified as queer. Their experiences were virtually identical to those of another student who told me years earlier that she faced religious hostility and the threat of eviction from her mother when she came out.